Alien girl spent her life in chains. Now she sleeps safely at his side. Your epidermal layer is secreting an unusual amount of fluid. Is this a distress signal? Jake Riley froze, wrench halfway raised, bare chest gleaming with sweat and leaking coolant fluid from the busted cryo-unit panel he was wrestling with. Distress signal. Lady, the only distress signal is my sanity alarm going off because there's a 7-foot-tall alien goddess standing in my doorway. He slowly turned, trying not to drip questionable blue liquid onto the already grimy floor of his quarters aboard the transport freighter Nomad. Standing there, flanked by 2 security goons who looked as thrilled as he felt, was the most striking and utterly out-of-place being he'd ever seen. She was tall, yes, impossibly slender, with skin like polished alabaster that seemed to hold a faint, pearlescent light within it. Large, dark eyes, lacking pupils as far as he could tell, regarded him with unnerving stillness. Delicate, filament-like structures, almost like glassy antennae, curved back from her temples, catching the corridor light. She wore simple, gray shipishu clothes that did nothing to hide the inherent grace in her posture, despite the faint, almost invisible scars that crisscrossed her wrists. Okay, Riley, play it cool. You're a professional. A half-naked, coolant-covered professional. No distress, he managed, wiping a hand on his already stained cargo pants, his only piece of clothing currently, just wrestling with the temperamental air conditioning. It's losing. He offered a weak smile. Jake Riley, and you are. The alien tilted her head slightly, the movement fluid and precise. I am designated Lyra of the Cathar. You may call me Lyra. Her voice was a low, melodious contralto, rendered perfectly by the universal translator clipped to her collar, yet somehow still sounding exotic. The security guys shifted their weight. Right, Lyra, sounds like a constellation, figures. What can I do for you, lost? One of the guards stepped forward, looking bored. Riley, Commander Vesh needs you to stow her, securely. Jake blinked. Stow her, like cargo, seriously. Did I miss the memo about us becoming an alien refugee ferry service? Lyra's expression didn't change, but Jake could have sworn the faint iridescence under her skin flickered for a microsecond. I am not cargo, officer, she stated calmly. I am a passenger requiring temporary sanctuary. The guard grunted. Whatever. Ship's full, security issue with the other refugees. Vesh says your quarters are secure enough and you're cleared for sensitive asset handling from your old CMC days. Oh, fantastic. My glowing military record boils down to good at babysitting potentially dangerous aliens. Just freaking great. Sensitive asset, Jake echoed, glancing at Lyra. She met his gaze evenly. There was something ancient and weary in those dark eyes, something that didn't quite fit with the almost fragile appearance. Look, no offense, Lyra, but my quarters are basically a closet with a bunk and a malfunctioning AC unit. It's not exactly the presidential suite. Adequate facilities are sufficient, Lyra replied. Her gaze swept the small space, taking in the messy bunk, the scattered tools, the flickering light panel. Security protocols supersede comfort. The guards didn't wait for further argument. She's your responsibility, Riley. Don't let her wander. Don't let anyone near her. Vesh wants hourly check-ins. They gave Lyra a wide berth as they backed out, sealing the door behind them with a heavy thunk. Silence descended, thick and awkward. Jake was still half-naked, covered in goo and acutely aware of the very tall, very composed alien standing 3 feet away. Her presence seemed to fill the small room, making the air feel charged. Okay, deep breaths. Handle this. Just gotta stow the guest. He gestured vaguely towards the cramped space. Make yourself at home, what little there is of it. Lyra inclined her head again. Thank you, Jake Riley. She moved towards the small bench bolted to the wall, her movements economical and deliberate. She sat, folding her long-fingered hands in her lap. The silence stretched again. This is going to be the longest trip ever. Jake sighed internally, grabbing a rag to futilely wipe at his chest. Look, I need to degoopify. The sonic shower is over there. He pointed to a small recessed stall. It's functional, mostly. I understand the human need for regular cleansing rituals, Lyra said. Her dark eyes followed his hand, then flickered back to his face. Your core body temperature has elevated slightly since my arrival. Jake stopped wiping. It has. Is she scanning me? Does she have thermal vision or something? Weird. Probably the coolant or the stellar conversation. He tried for a joke, but it fell flat in the quiet room. Lyra tilted her head again. Conversation can indeed influence physiological responses among sentient species. Fascinating. Fascinating. Lady, I'm trying not to have a panic attack about sharing my shoe box with an alien I know nothing about, except that she's important enough for Vesh to stick her with me. Right, well, I'm gonna go cleanse. Holler if I don't know the ship starts exploding or something. He retreated into the shower stall, pulling the flimsy curtain closed. The sonic hum vibrated through his bones, but it did little to wash away the tension coiling in his gut. He had a feeling exploding ships might be preferable to this awkward cohabitation. When Jake emerged, marginally cleaner and now wearing a worn t-shirt along with his pants, Lyra was exactly where he'd left her, posture unchanged. She seemed to be observing the opposite wall with intense concentration. Maybe she finds bulkhead riveting, or maybe she's just trying really hard not to look at the sweaty human. So, he started, leaning against the doorframe of the shower trying to project casual indifference. Commander Vesh didn't exactly give me the full briefing. Sensitive asset is a bit vague. What's the deal? Are you space royalty, a fugitive? Did you accidentally insult a Graken ambassador's third wife? Lyra turned her head slowly towards him. My situation is complex. I recently gained liberation from the Z-TAC hegemony. Jake's casualness evaporated. Z-TAC? Seriously? The Z-TAC were notorious slavers and conquerors, known for their brutality and disregard for sentient rights. He'd seen worlds they'd stripped bare on CMC patrols. They held you captive. For a significant portion of my existence, Lyra confirmed, her voice remaining level. But Jake saw it again, that subtle flicker beneath her skin like heat lightning under clouds, and the delicate filaments near her temples seemed too tight, or maybe quiver slightly. It was hard to tell. The chains referenced by the guards were literal. She held up her wrists briefly, showing the faint, silvery lines of scar tissue. Damn, suddenly the sarcasm felt inappropriate. I'm sorry, that's rough. Way to state the obvious, Riley. Sympathy is a human emotional response I am still calibrating, Lyra said. Survival was the primary directive. Yeah, well, survival's good, you survived. He pushed off the doorframe, moving towards the small viewport. Stars streaked past in hypnotic lines. So, the Z-TAC, are they looking for you? That would explain the security lockdown. It is highly probable. Great, just freaking great. I'm rooming with someone who has pissed off slavers on her tail. Okay, good to know. He ran a hand through his damp hair. Look, this room, it's got one bunk. You can take it. Lyra looked at the narrow sleeping platform. Sharing sleeping spaces is customary for humans requiring proximity. Jake almost choked. No, not usually. Definitely not with strangers, especially not strangers who might have galactic bad guys hunting them. And especially not strangers who look like you and make my pulse do weird things. It's just, you're the guest, the sensitive asset guest. I do not require elevation above necessary function, she stated. The floor panel appears structurally sound for reclining. You want to sleep on the floor, seriously. She looks like she'd break if you looked at her too hard, and she wants the deck plating. My species can enter restorative states in various positions. Comfort is secondary to situational awareness. She gestured towards the bunk. Your need for horizontal suspension during unconsciousness seems more pronounced. He stared at her. Horizontal suspension, you mean sleeping? Is she deliberately messing with me, or is this just how Cathar talk? Yeah, okay, my need is pronounced. Fine, but I'm not letting you sleep on the floor. He grabbed the spare, thin blanket from the storage bin under the bunk. Here, bench is better than the floor. Lyra regarded the blanket, then him. This is an offering of comfort. Yeah, comfort. Standard procedure when you don't want your alien roommate catching space pneumonia on the cold, hard deck. He tossed the blanket onto the bench. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to report in that the asset is secure and not currently dismantling my AC unit with her mind powers or something. Which, honestly, I wouldn't put past her. He moved to the comm panel, acutely aware of her gaze following him. This was going to be a very, very long trip. The next few ship cycles blurred into a routine of forced proximity and awkward silence, punctuated by Lyra's startlingly direct observations. Jake learned that Cathar apparently didn't require much sleep, or at least, not in the way humans did. Lyra spent most of the night cycle sitting perfectly still on the bench, eyes open, seemingly observing the patterns of hyperspace outside the viewport, or more unnervingly, observing him while he tried to sleep. It's like having a very beautiful, potentially lethal owl watching you snore. He tried closing his eyes, feigning sleep, but the feeling of being watched was intense. It wasn't hostile exactly, more analytical. One morning, he woke groggily to find her standing near the viewport, her back to him. The faint light from a passing nebula illuminated her silhouette, highlighting the strange, almost ethereal grace of her form. The filaments near her temples seemed to glow faintly, pulsing with a soft, internal light that matched the nebula's colors. Okay, that's definitely new, and kinda gorgeous. Stop it, Riley. Morning, he mumbled, sitting up and rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Or whatever passes for it in the void. Lyra turned. The glow faded instantly, her expression reverting to its usual calm neutrality. Your primary cardiovascular organ registered a significant increase in rhythm upon waking. Jake sighed. Yeah, it's called a heartbeat, Lyra. Humans tend to have them, especially when they wake up and find someone staring at them. Or maybe just staring at you. My observation was not intended to cause perturbation, she said. I was merely analyzing the ambient energy fluctuations near the stellar nursery. They resonate, interestingly. Right, resonate. He swung his legs over the side of the bunk. Anyone ever tell you Cathar are a little intense? She tilted her head. Intense? Please define this parameter in a quantifiable manner. Quantifiable? How about makes my palms sweat just standing near you intense? Never mind. Lost in translation. He stood up, stretching. Look, we're stuck together. Maybe we could try talking. Like normal beings, find out something about each other that doesn't involve pulse rates or resonant energy. Lyra considered this for a moment. Information exchange could prove mutually beneficial. What data do you require? Data, right. Okay, how about this? Human custom. It's called 20 questions, except let's just do 3. I ask you 3 things, you ask me 3 things. No analyzing physiological responses allowed. A flicker of something curiosity crossed her features. A structured interrogation for bonding purposes, acceptable, you may commence. Bonding purposes, is that what this is, freaky? Okay, question 1, what's the deal with the glowy bits, the skin thing, the head filament things? Lyra touched one of the delicate filaments near her temple almost unconsciously. These are cephalic sensory filaments. They process microvibrational and bioenergetic data from the environment. The integumentary luminescence you observe is a minor, involuntary biofeedback response to strong external stimuli or internal emotional states. So mood lighting, Jake quipped. Of a biological nature, yes, she conceded. It is typically suppressed in formal interactions. My control is less refined due to recent stresses. Understatement of the century, probably. Okay, question 2. What did the Z-TAC want with you, with your species? Her posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. The Cathar possess certain sensitivities, abilities related to energy manipulation and resonance. The Z-TAC sought to weaponize these traits. They experimented. The word hung heavy in the air. The faint scars on her wrists seemed more prominent for a second. Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Weaponize, experimented. Suddenly, her stillness, her guarded nature made a whole lot more sense. Damn, okay. Last question, what's one thing you actually liked before the Z-tac? Lyra was silent for a long time, her gaze distant. The resonance gardens of Cathar Prime, she said finally, her voice softer than he'd heard it. Places where ambient energies coalesced into harmonic fields. We could shape them, feel the life pulse of the planet. It was serene. Jake tried to imagine it, this alien garden of energy. It sounded peaceful, a universe away from the cold metal of the nomad. Sounds nice, he offered quietly. Okay, your turn, 3 questions. Lyra refocused on him. Question 1. Your designation is Jake Riley. Is Jake the signifier of lineage or personal identification? A personal ID, Jake. Riley's the family name. Does she think my first name is my rank or something? Understood. Question 2. You exhibit frequent fluctuations in vocal tone and facial expression, not directly correlated with the literal meaning of your words. Is this a form of human obfuscation? He chuckled despite himself. It's called sarcasm, sometimes humor. It's complicated, usually means the opposite of what I'm saying or highlights something ridiculous, like this whole situation. A communication protocol based on inversion, Lyra mused. Inefficient, yet intriguing. Question 3, she paused, her dark eyes seeming to probe deeper. You wear the insignia of the Coalition Marine Corps, yet your current deployment is low-security transport. You also display physiological indicators associated with past trauma recall when discussing aliens. Explain this discrepancy. Jake froze. Damn, she doesn't miss much. He looked away towards the viewport again. Long story. Let's just say my last CMC mission involved trusting the wrong aliens. Didn't end well. Got an honorable discharge and a recommendation for less stressful duties. He forced a shrug. So here I am, guarding sensitive assets on a rust bucket freighter. The trauma involved betrayal, Lyra stated, not unkindly. This informs your initial reluctance towards interaction with non-human species, including myself. Something like that, he admitted gruffly. Great. Now the alien refugee is psychoanalyzing me. Guess we both have reasons to be wary. An unexpected chime broke the tension. The comm panel flashed. Commander Vesh requires your hourly report, Riley, came the tinny voice of the ship's communication officer. Right on schedule, Jake muttered, moving to the panel. Riley here, assets secure, no incidents. Unless you count existential dread and awkward interspecies Q&A. Acknowledged, maintain vigilance, Vesh out. Jake leaned his head against the cool metal of the bulkhead for a second after the comm clicked off. Vigilance maintained, he sighed to himself. He turned back to Lyra, who was watching him with that unnervingly calm expression. But maybe, just maybe, there was a flicker of something else in those dark eyes now. Understanding. Or maybe I'm just projecting. Inefficient, yet intriguing, Lyra repeated softly, almost to herself. Human interaction protocols. Jake managed a small smile. Yeah, well, we try. Maybe this cohabitation wouldn't be entirely unbearable. Maybe. The fragile truce held for another cycle. They settled into an uneasy rhythm. Jake would work on minor repairs around his tiny quarters, a task he suddenly found himself inventing, mostly to avoid sitting in silence. Lyra would observe, sometimes asking pointed questions about human technology or physiology. He learned Cathar sustained themselves through absorbing ambient energy, supplemented by nutrient pastes, making mealtimes less awkward than he'd feared. He found himself explaining human concepts like boredom and favorite foods, her response to pizza. High-fat, high-sodium sustenance with minimal nutritional value. Why is it considered desirable? Because it's delicious, obviously. Some things are beyond scientific explanation. He also learned about Cathar culture in snippets. They valued resonance, harmony, and a deep respect for personal space, which they called zhao. It wasn't just physical distance, but an energetic boundary. Intrusion into someone's zhao without invitation was a grave offense. Explains why she keeps her distance, I guess, and why she looked weirded out when the guards got close. One cycle, the ship shuddered violently, throwing Jake off balance. Red alert klaxons blared, bathing the small cabin in emergency light. What the hell was that? Jake scrambled for the comms. Multiple impacts port side. A panicked voice shouted over the ship-wide channel before cutting out into static. Lyra was instantly on her feet, her usual stillness replaced by sharp alertness. The filaments at her temples vibrated visibly, and the pearlescent glow under her skin intensified, shifting like disturbed water. "Energy signatures detected," she said, her voice tight. "Z-TAC weapons profile." "Oh crap, they found us." Jake grabbed the emergency pulse rifle stored in the weapons locker beside his bunk. Standard procedure was to secure the asset and await orders, but the comms were dead. "Okay, new plan. We need to get somewhere safer. Maybe the engine room, more bulkheads between us and whatever's hitting us." Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the corridor outside through the small door viewport. "Agreed. The Z-TAC prioritize capture over destruction when pursuing valuable assets. They will likely attempt boarding actions." "Valuable asset, her. Right, stick close." He checked the rifle's charge. "Hope I remember how to use this thing properly." He cracked the door seal, peering out into the red-lit chaos of the corridor. Sparks flew from a damaged conduit further down. Distant sounds of weapons fire echoed. "Clear for now," he whispered. "Let's move." They slipped out into the corridor, Jake taking point, rifle raised. Lyra moved silently behind him, her heightened senses presumably on high alert. They navigated the narrow passageways, the ship groaning around them from further impacts. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with two figures in the bulky, insected armor of Z-TAC shock troops. "Damn it!" Jake raised his rifle, but one of the Z-TAC fired first. A searing bolt of plasma energy slammed into the bulkhead beside Jake's head, showering him with molten metal shards. He yelped, staggering back, dropping the rifle as pain flared across his cheek and shoulder. Before the Z-TAC could fire again, Lyra moved. She flowed past Jake in a blur of motion. Her hands, previously appearing delicate, struck the first Z-TAC's weapon arm with surprising force, sending the plasma caster clattering away. She spun, evading a clumsy strike from the second trooper, and pressed her palm flat against its chest plate. There was no explosion, no visible force, but the Z-TAC warrior convulsed violently, armor sparking. It collapsed, twitching. The first trooper, momentarily stunned, raised its remaining arm, revealing wicked-looking claws. Lyra met its charge, her body moving with an unnatural fluidity. Her hand darted out, not striking, but weaving through the air in a complex pattern. The faint glow under her skin pulsed brightly, and the air around her seemed to shimmer. The Z-TAC froze mid-lunge, its movements becoming sluggish, then stopping altogether as if trapped in invisible syrup. It remained standing, paralyzed. Jake stared, clutching his bleeding cheek. What the actual hell just happened? Lyra turned back to him, her breath coming slightly faster. The glow under her skin slowly subsided, but her filaments still vibrated intensely. "Are you injured significantly?" Jake stammered, touching his face. It stung like crazy, but the cut seemed shallow. "Just singed." "What did you do?" "Directed energy resonance," she explained curtly. "Disrupted their neural functions temporarily. It is taxing." She swayed slightly. Jake instinctively reached out, steadying her by the arm. Her skin felt incredibly cool beneath his fingers, almost like chilled marble despite the exertion. For a split second, as his hand made contact, the filaments near her temples flared with a soft, cyan light, and a faint, almost inaudible hum resonated through the air. His pulse jumped. "Whoa." She pulled her arm back gently but quickly, breaking the contact. Her gaze flickered away for a moment before meeting his again. "We must keep moving. They will send more." Jake nodded, retrieving his rifle, his mind racing. Directed energy resonance. Taxing. She took down 2 Z-TAC commandos like it was nothing. His perception of her shifted again. Not just a fragile refugee. Not just an alien observer. Something powerful. Something dangerous. And she got between me and that plasma bolt. They continued through the damaged ship, encountering sporadic resistance. Jake handled a couple of lone troopers with his pulse rifle, his old training kicking back in. Lyra dealt with others using her strange energy manipulation, though each use seemed to drain her further. Her movements became less fluid, the glow under her skin flickering weakly. Finally, they reached the heavy blast doors leading to the main engineering section. Jake keyed in the access code, and the doors hissed open, revealing the relatively untouched, humming heart of the ship. A handful of scared-looking engineers peered out from behind consoles. "Riley, what's happening?" Chief Engineer Anya Sharma called out, wrench in hand. "Z-TAC boarding party," Jake reported grimly. "Comms are down ship-wide. We need to secure this section." As the engineers scrambled to seal the doors behind them, Lyra leaned heavily against the bulkhead, her eyes closed. The filaments drooped slightly, the pearlescent glow gone, leaving her skin looking pale and almost translucent. Jake moved to her side, concern overriding his earlier shock. "Hey, you okay? You look like you're about to phase out of existence." Lyra opened her eyes slowly. They seemed darker, deeper. "The energy expenditure, it depletes my core reserves. I require stillness." "Right, okay." He guided her towards a secluded alcove between 2 massive conduits humming with power. "Sit here, rest, we'll hold this position." He hesitated, then awkwardly patted her shoulder. "You did good back there, really good. Saved my ass specifically." Lyra looked up at him, a faint tremor running through her hand where it rested on her knee. "Protecting allies is logical." "Allies, is that what we are now?" He met her gaze, and for the first time he saw past the alienness, past the trauma, and saw just her. Vulnerable, exhausted, but resolute. His own heart gave a strange, unfamiliar lurch. This is getting complicated. They fortified engineering, the handful of them preparing for a siege. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hum of the engines and the occasional distant thud of fighting elsewhere on the Nomad. Jake checked on Lyra periodically. She sat unmoving in the alcove, seemingly meditating, though the faint tremors hadn't entirely ceased. He found himself worrying, a feeling he hadn't consciously allowed himself regarding an alien since before the mission that ended his career. During a lull, he brought her a nutrient paste tube, the standard emergency rations. "Here, might help." She took it, her fingers brushing his. This time her skin felt warmer than before. Not hot, but definitely not the chilling cold he'd felt earlier. The filaments gave a barely perceptible twitch. "Temperature changes with mood," she said. "What does warmer mean?" "Thank you, Jake Riley," she murmured, her voice low and slightly rough. "Just Jake," he corrected gently. "We're past the formalities, I think, considering." She looked at him, a long, searching look. "Yes, perhaps we are." She broke the seal on the nutrient paste. "Your cheek requires medical attention." He touched the crusted blood. "It's fine, just a scratch." Infection is a risk in contained environments. She reached out hesitantly, her long, cool fingers gently tilting his face towards the dim light. Her touch was feather-light, analytical. "The epidermal layer is breached, but the damage appears superficial. Minimal scarring is likely." Her thumb brushed near the corner of his mouth, sending an unexpected jolt through him. He swallowed, suddenly finding it hard to breathe normally. Her proximity, the focused intensity of her gaze, the memory of her power, it was overwhelming. Her dark eyes scanned his face, and he wondered what she saw, what bioenergetic data she was picking up from him now. Probably human experiencing terminal awkwardness. "Thanks, Doc," he managed, pulling back slightly, though he didn't really want to. Good to know. She withdrew her hand, folding it back into her lap. Cathar possessed advanced knowledge of cellular regeneration. On Cathar Prime, her voice trailed off, a shadow crossing her features. Tell me about it, Jake prompted softly, sitting down on the deck plating near her alcove. Cathar Prime, the Resonance Gardens. Lyra hesitated, then began to speak. She described a world bathed in soft light, where crystalline structures pulsed with natural energy, where the very air hummed with life. She spoke of her people, not as warriors or victims, but as artists, shaping energy fields, communicating through subtle shifts in resonance, living in harmony with their planet. She explained more about Zhao, the sanctity of personal energetic space, and how the Z-TAC invasion had shattered that harmony, violating not just their bodies, but their very essence. And she spoke of Korra, a state of profound trust and vulnerability shared between individuals, a merging of Zhao boundaries that was the highest form of connection. It was rare, sacred, sounds intense, like soulmate-level intense. Achieving Korra requires immense emotional resonance and compatibility, she explained, her gaze fixed on something beyond the metal walls. It is the precursor to deeper bonds. Jake listened, fascinated and increasingly moved. This wasn't just an alien explaining biology, it was someone sharing the soul of her lost world. It sounds beautiful, he said sincerely when she fell silent. And losing it, I can't imagine. Lyra looked at him, her expression unguarded for a fleeting moment. It is why I fight, why I resist, to reclaim even a fragment of that serenity, to prevent others from suffering the violation. Suddenly, a loud banging echoed from the main blast doors. Open up, this is Commander Vesh. The Z-TAC have been neutralized. Secure the prisoner. Jake and the engineers exchanged looks. Prisoner, not refugee, not asset. Something's not right. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes were wide, the brief openness replaced by dawning horror and betrayal. The faint glow returned to her skin, but this time it was erratic, flickering like a failing light bulb. Her filaments trembled violently. No, she whispered, scrambling back into the alcove. He wouldn't. Vesh, Jake moved towards the door comms, rifle ready again. Commander, this is Riley. Confirm your identity code. Don't be an idiot, Riley. Vesh's voice barked back, harsh and impatient. Authorization Omega-7 Niner. Now open this damn door before I blast it open. That thing is dangerous. Omega-7 Niner. The code was correct, but his gut screamed trap. Vesh had seemed stressed before, but never this aggressive. And calling Lyra a thing, a prisoner, he knew. He knew the Z-TAC were coming. Maybe Vesh wasn't rescuing a refugee. Maybe he was planning on selling her back, or worse. He looked back at Lyra, huddled in the corner, radiating fear and despair. He thought of her scars, her story, her quiet strength, the way she'd protected him. Duty versus what? Decency, attraction. Whatever it was, he couldn't hand her over. Negative, Commander, Jake said firmly into the comms, making a split-second decision. Asset requires medical attention. Engineering is under quarantine protocol Delta. No entry. Hope Anya backs me up on this invented protocol. He glanced at the chief engineer, who gave a subtle, determined nod. Riley, you are relieved of duty. That is a direct order, Vesh roared. A heavy thud impacted the door, making it groan. They were trying to force it. Sorry, Commander, Jake said, gripping his rifle. My orders are to protect the asset, and right now you sound like the biggest threat. He turned to Lyra. Looks like we're allies after all. Her eyes met his, wide and luminous in the dim light. The chaotic flickering under her skin coalesced, shifting into a steady, warm glow. Her filaments pulsed slowly, rhythmically. Jake, she breathed, his name sounding different on her lips, imbued with a resonance that vibrated deep in his chest. The blast door shuddered under another blow. Things had just gotten a lot more complicated, and a lot more dangerous. The siege on engineering lasted for what felt like days. though ship time was notoriously unreliable during combat lockdowns. Vesh's forces hammered at the main blast door periodically, but it was rated to withstand hull breaches. Repurposed security troops weren't getting through easily. Inside, a tense alliance held. Anya Sharma and her skeleton crew kept the engine stable and rerouted power to reinforce the door seals, occasionally firing sonic bursts through the outer plating to discourage attackers. Jake coordinated their meager defense, relying on his CMC training. Lyra, after her initial shock and fear, regained her composure, though a new intensity simmered beneath the surface. She spent hours seemingly in a trance, her hands hovering over humming power conduits. Jake initially thought she was just resting, drawing energy, but Anya pulled him aside. "She's not just drawing power, Riley," the engineer whispered, her eyes wide. "She's communicating with the ship, harmonizing with the engine core's resonance field. I've never seen anything like it. Diagnostics are going nuts, but in a good way. Efficiency is spiking." Harmonizing, like her resonance gardens. Jake looked over at Lyra. The warm glow under her skin was constant now, soft but vibrant. Her filaments moved in slow, complex patterns, like conductors leading an invisible orchestra. So her energy manipulation isn't just for fighting. He approached her cautiously, not wanting to break her concentration. "Lyra, you doing okay?" She turned her head, her dark eyes clear and focused. The ship, it has a voice, distorted by human technology but present. It fears the conflict. "Okay, talking to the ship. Definitely not in the CMC manual. Can you ask it to maybe zap Vesh's guys for us?" he tried, only half joking. A faint smile touched Lyra's lips, a rare and startling sight. "Its defensive capabilities are crude, but its energy flow, I can augment it, redirect it, perhaps create a diversion." "A diversion sounds good. Anything to get Vesh off our backs." The pounding on the door intensified again. "It will require concentration and proximity to the primary energy core." She pushed herself away from the conduits, swaying slightly. The glow around her flickered. Jake steadied her, his hand automatically finding her arm. This time the warmth radiating from her was significant, seeping into his palm. It felt vital, alive. Her filaments pulsed against his knuckles, sending tingles up his arm. "Whoa, you're running hot." "Energy conversion generates thermal output," she explained, her gaze meeting his. The proximity, the shared danger, the memory of her touch on his face, it all converged, thickening the air between them. Her dark eyes held his, and he felt a strange pull, a sense of recognition that went beyond species. "Is this resonance?" "Can you make it to the core chamber?" he asked, his voice huskier than intended. She nodded with assistance. "Right, Anya, cover us." Jake slung his rifle and put his arm around Lyra's waist, supporting her weight as they moved deeper into engineering, towards the shielded chamber housing the Nomad's power source. Her body felt strangely light yet solid against his, the warmth intensifying. He could feel the faint vibration from her filaments through his shirt. "Focus, Riley. Diversion. Not whatever this is." Inside the core chamber, the low hum of the engine was a physical presence. Lyra placed her hands on the shimmering containment field. The glow radiating from her intensified dramatically, bathing the chamber in warm, golden light. The patterns under her skin swirled and danced, complex and beautiful. Her filaments vibrated rapidly, emitting a high-pitched, harmonic chime that resonated in Jake's bones. "What's she doing?" Anya whispered from the doorway. "Making friends with the engine," Jake muttered, watching Lyra captivated. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship, different from the red alert. Lights flickered violently. Non-essential systems began shutting down, power being rerouted. From outside engineering, shouts of confusion and alarm could be heard. "What did you do?" Jake asked Lyra. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly. "Created a cascade failure simulation in external sectors. Emergency protocols will divert all remaining security personnel, including Vesh's forces, to contain the meltdown. She sagged against the containment field, the intense glow dimming, the humming fading. It will not hold them for long. Long enough, Jake said, helping her away from the core. Anya, can you get a shuttle prepped, quietly? Anya grinned fiercely. Already on it, Bay 3, minimal power signature. Let's go. Supporting Lyra, Jake led the way back through engineering. The pounding on the main door had stopped. Lyra's diversion had worked. They reached the service corridor leading to Shuttle Bay 3. It was deserted. Anya remotely opened the bay doors and the ramp of a small, functional cargo shuttle. Go. I'll wipe the logs and catch up if I can. Thanks, Anya. Owe you one. Jake helped Lyra up the ramp. She stumbled, nearly falling. He caught her, pulling her close. For a moment they were chest to chest, her face buried against his shoulder. He could feel the rapid beat of her heart, or whatever Cathar had, against his own. Her filaments brushed his neck, sending shivers down his spine. The warmth radiating from her was almost feverish. Easy there, he murmured, almost safe. She looked up at him, her dark eyes searching his face. The air crackled with unspoken energy. Jake. He leaned down, intending to, reassure her, thank her. His gaze dropped to her lips. Bad idea, Riley, very bad. She didn't pull away. Instead, one of her hands came up, cool fingers touching the pulse point at his throat. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Your Zhao, it resonates. With mine. Before Jake could process that, the shuttle ramp closed, sealing them inside. He quickly moved to the cockpit, firing up the engines. Strap in, he called back, trying to get his own suddenly erratic pulse under control. Resonates. Is that Cathar for I think I like you? Or prepare for imminent energy blast? The shuttle detached smoothly from the Nomad, slipping out into the stardusted blackness just as warning lights flared back to life on the freighter. They'd made it. For now. He set a course away from the Nomad, towards the nearest neutral outpost listed in the nav computer, a place called Haven Point. It was several days away at the shuttle's modest speed. Plenty of time for more awkward silences and confusing bioresonant signals. He glanced back. Lyra had collapsed onto one of the rear benches, her eyes closed, the glow completely gone. She looked utterly drained. Guilt gnawed at him. She'd saved him repeatedly, and it had cost her dearly. He engaged the autopilot and went back to her, kneeling beside the bench. Hey, how bad is it? Depleted, she whispered, not opening her eyes. The connection severed abruptly, painful. Connection to the ship. And the ambient field. She shivered, despite the warmth he could still feel radiating from her. I am untethered. He didn't fully understand, but he understood distress. He found a thermal blanket in the emergency locker, thicker than the one back in his quarters, and draped it over her. Her hand weakly grasped his as he tucked it around her. Rest, he said softly. I'll watch over you. Her fingers tightened slightly on his. You intruded upon my Zhao, she murmured, her voice drowsy. Oh crap, did I offend her back there? Sorry. Emergency situation, you know. A tiny smile touched her lips again. It was not unwelcome. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, meeting his. They were dark pools reflecting the faint cockpit lights. A state of Cora requires mutual vulnerability, trust. Her eyes drifted closed again. You have demonstrated trustworthiness. His heart did that stupid lurch again. Cora, the deep trust thing. Was she saying? He looked down at her hand clutching his, her face peaceful now in apparent sleep, exhaustion finally claiming her. The faint scars on her wrist stood out against her pale skin. No more chains, not literal ones anyway. He gently disentangled his hand and returned to the cockpit, feeling strangely protective, and confused, and warm. He glanced back at her sleeping form. Okay, Riley. You broke protocol, defied a direct order, aided a fugitive alien, and stole a shuttle. And the alien in question might be trying to initiate some kind of psychic soul bond. His old CMC instructors would have kittens, but damn if it doesn't feel like the right thing to do. He settled in for the long flight, the silence of space punctuated only by the hum of the shuttle and the soft sound of Lyra breathing behind him. Haven Point couldn't come soon enough. Or maybe it could take its time. The journey to Haven Point was quiet. Lyra slept for almost a full cycle, a deep, restorative sleep that seemed to knit back together the energy she'd expended. Jake watched over her, rationing their minimal supplies, running scans for pursuit none. Thankfully, Vesh was likely too busy explaining how he'd lost his prisoner in a shuttle and trying very hard not to think about the implications of Cora or resonating Zhao. Keep it simple, Riley. Get her safe. That's the mission. When Lyra finally awoke, she seemed different. Less guarded, the constant tension eased from her posture. The pearlescent glow under her skin was back, soft and steady, and her filaments had regained their usual subtle vibrancy. She sat up, stretching with a fluid grace that made Jake's mouth go dry. "Good sleep?" he asked, trying to sound casual as he handed her a water pouch. "Replenishing," she confirmed, accepting the pouch. Her fingers brushed his again and the familiar warmth spread through him. This time neither of them pulled away immediately. The localized space is calm, no Z-tax signatures. "Yeah, looks like we lost them, or Vesh decided we weren't worth the trouble. Or he got spaced for incompetence. One can hope." Commander Vesh was likely acting under duress or manipulation, Lyra mused, sipping the water. The Z-tac are skilled in coercion. Jake frowned. "You think?" Seemed pretty committed to getting you back. His jowl felt fractured, conflicted. She looked at Jake. "Unlike yours." "Here we go again." "My jowl is just happy to be breathing free air," he deflected. "So, Haven Point, neutral territory, should be safe enough for you to figure out your next move. Maybe contact your people." Lyra lowered the water pouch. "My people are scattered. Cathar Prime is lost. There is no central authority to contact." A shadow crossed her face. "Survival often means isolation." "Doesn't have to," Jake said quietly. "You're not alone now." "Did I just say that out loud?" "Yes. Yes, I did." Smooth Riley. She met his gaze, her dark eyes holding an unnerving depth. "No," she agreed softly. "I am not." The space between them felt charged again, humming with unspoken possibilities. Her filaments quivered almost imperceptibly. The air temperature seemed to rise a few degrees. Okay, definitely not just the thermostat. His own heart rate kicked up a notch. He cleared his throat. "Right, well, almost there, should make orbit in a few hours." He turned back to the controls, needing the distraction. Focus on flying the damn shuttle. Haven Point was a sprawling orbital station, a chaotic melting pot of species and ships buzzing around like metallic insects. Jake navigated the shuttle through the traffic, securing docking clearance with minimal fuss, using old CMC emergency codes he probably shouldn't still have access to. Benefits of the service, I guess. As the shuttle settled into its designated berth, Lyra stood beside him, looking out at the station's panorama. "A nexus point," she observed. "Much turbulence in the local energetic fields." "Yeah, it's a busy place. Good spot to disappear or find passage somewhere further out." He powered down the main systems. "Ready." She turned to him, her expression serious. "Jake, before we disembark, there is something that must be understood." That we need to talk, universal apparently. Okay, shoot." "The state of Cora, the resonance between our Zhao, it is not trivial among my people. It signifies the potential for Shikar." "Shikar," he repeated, the alien word sounding strange on his tongue. "The deepest bond," Lyra explained, her gaze intense. "A melding of life energies, emotions, essence. It is how Cathar form lasting partnerships. It is rare, sacred, and typically only possible between Cathar due to bioresonant compatibility requirements." Jake felt his eyebrows climbing his forehead. Melding of life energies, essence, partnership, is she proposing, typically? The energy I sensed from you, particularly when you defended me against Vesh, when we escaped, it was strong, compatible, unexpectedly so. She took a small step closer. The warm glow under her skin seemed to brighten, pulsing softly. The Z-TAC believed interspecies resonance impossible. They sought to force it, control it. But this feels natural, earned. He was speechless. An alien goddess was basically telling him they were potential soulmates according to her people's energy-based matchmaking system. His brain struggled to catch up. Okay, deep breaths, don't freak out. So, Shikar, what does that entail, practically speaking? Lyra tilted her head, a hint of confusion in her eyes. It entails connection, shared existence, mutual support, exploration of intimacy. The last word was spoken softly, almost hesitantly. Intimacy, right. That definitely got his attention. He looked at Lyra, her strange beauty, her quiet strength, the warmth he felt radiating from her, the undeniable pull between them. It was insane. She was an alien. He was a washed-up Marine hiding from his past, but maybe insane wasn't so bad. You said potential, he clarified, needing to be sure. It's not automatic. No, Shikar requires conscious acceptance, a mutual willingness to lower all barriers to fully merge one's Zhao. She searched his face. It is a profound commitment, and perhaps impossible given our differences, our species' understanding of biology, of connection. Maybe our understandings are incomplete, Jake heard himself say. He reached out, his hand hovering just above her arm, hesitant to intrude on her Zhao uninvited this time. This resonance. I feel it too, Lyra. I don't understand it, but I feel it. Her filaments quivered, glowing with a soft rose-gold light. She leaned slightly into his space, bridging the final gap. Her hand rose to meet his, cool fingers intertwining with his warmer ones. A jolt, like static electricity but deeper, more fundamental, passed between them. Jake, she whispered again, and this time it felt like coming home. The docking clamp alarm buzzed, signaling their secure connection to Haven Point. The moment was broken, but the connection lingered, humming between them. So, Jake said, his voice rough, looks like we need to find somewhere private to talk more about this shared existence thing, and maybe the intimacy part too. Definitely the intimacy part. A rare, genuine smile lit up Lyra's face, transforming her features, making her breathtakingly beautiful. Yes, she agreed. That seems logical. They found modest lodgings in a quieter sector of the station, far from the main hustle. It wasn't much bigger than Jake's old quarters on the Nomad, but it was clean, private, and blessedly free of malfunctioning AC units. As soon as the door slid shut behind them, the energy that had been simmering between them ignited. Jake turned to face Lyra, his heart pounding. She met his gaze, her own eyes luminous, the glow under her skin shifting, swirling like captured nebulas. Her filaments pulsed with that soft, rose-gold light. The air itself felt thick, charged. Lyra, he started, but words failed him. She stepped closer, raising a hand to cup his cheek, right over the now-healing plasma burn. Her touch was cool at first, then rapidly warmed, sending waves of heat through his skin, straight to his core. Your energy, it calls to mine, she whispered, her voice resonating with that strange harmonic quality he'd heard in the engine room. You accept the potential, the Shikar. He swallowed hard, his gaze locked on hers. All his ingrained distrust, his cynicism, his fear, it melted away under the intensity of her presence, under the undeniable truth of the connection humming between them. This was real, terrifyingly, exhilaratingly real. Yes, he breathed. I accept. Her answering smile was dazzling. She leaned in, her forehead pressing gently against his. It wasn't a kiss, not in the human sense, but it was incredibly intimate. He felt a dizzying rush, like plugging into a power source. Images, feelings, fragments of her experience, the cold terror of the Z-TAC, the serene beauty of the Resonance Gardens, the lonely ache of survival, the burgeoning warmth she felt for him, flooded his mind, overlapping with his own messy thoughts and feelings. It wasn't overwhelming, More like understanding on a fundamental level. He gasped, pulling back slightly, needing air. Whoa, what was that? The beginning, Lyra murmured, her eyes half closed, her face flushed with light. The merging of Zhao, the first step towards Shikar. She traced the line of his jaw with her thumb. There is more if you desire it. Did he desire it? Hell yes. He tangled his fingers in the strange, soft hair at the nape of her neck, pulling her closer again. This time he claimed her lips in a human kiss. Her mouth was soft, hesitant at first, then responding with an eagerness that sent fire through his veins. It was alien and familiar all at once. The kiss deepened, growing more demanding. He explored the contours of her body, his hands tracing the slender lines of her back, her waist. Her skin felt incredibly smooth, alive beneath his touch, radiating that captivating warmth. The glow under her skin brightened, swirling in intricate patterns that responded to his caress, concentrating where his hands rested. She made a soft sound, a low hum that vibrated against his lips, resonating deep within his chest. Her own hands explored him, tracing the muscles of his shoulders, his chest, her touch both clinical and sensual. Her filaments brushed against his temples, sending sparks down his spine. It wasn't unpleasant, it was electrifying. They stumbled towards the room's single sleeping platform, shedding clothes haphazardly. Jake paused, momentarily awestruck by the sight of her. The bioluminescent patterns danced across her alabaster skin, swirling constellations of rose and gold light that pulsed with her breathing, with the rhythm of the energy flowing between them. She was utterly alien, yet achingly beautiful. "You're incredible," he breathed, reaching out to trace one of the glowing spirals on her hip. The light flared under his touch, and she shivered, her filaments vibrating rapidly. "Your biosignature, it amplifies the resonance," she murmured, her voice thick with arousal. She pulled him down onto the platform, her body molding against his. The contrast between her radiant warmth and the cooler ambient temperature of her skin was intoxicating. Their exploration became more urgent, a dance of discovery. He learned the sensitive points where her glow flared brightest, the base of her spine, the delicate skin behind her filaments, the curve of her hip. She discovered the human responses, the way his muscles tightened under her touch, the sharp intake of his breath when her cool fingers brushed a particularly sensitive spot. The Cathar process of joining Shikar, it is not solely physical, Lyra whispered, her breath warm against his ear, her filaments sending soft hums directly into his mind. It is a convergence, an alignment of energy fields. "Show me," he urged, needing all of her. She guided his hand to the center of her abdomen where the light pulsed strongest, converging into a radiant knot. "Focus your energy, your intent, connect with me, here." He closed his eyes, concentrating, pouring all his feelings for her, the fear, the fascination, the burgeoning love into that single point of contact. He felt something, a deep thrumming resonance, building between them, syncing their heartbeats, their breathing. It was like nothing he'd ever experienced. Lyra arched against him, a sharp cry escaping her lips, a sound not of pain but of ecstatic release. The light flared, momentarily blinding him even through closed eyelids. He felt a profound sense of joining, of two separate energies merging into one harmonious whole. It was overwhelming, transcendent. He felt her pleasure as if it were his own, her relief, her sense of belonging mirroring the sudden, fierce certainty in his own heart. When the light subsided, they lay tangled together, breathless, hearts pounding in unison. The glow under Lyra's skin had softened to a gentle, steady luminescence, bathing them both in its warmth. Her filaments rested softly against his cheek, emitting a low, contented purr-like vibration. "Shikar," she murmured, her voice filled with wonder. "It is complete, possible." Jake held her close, feeling utterly drained yet more alive than ever before. He brushed a stray strand of hair from her face, his fingers tracing the curve of her filament. "So, soulmates, huh?" She smiled, a slow, languid expression that made his heart ache. A human approximation, but yes. She snuggled closer, her head resting on his chest. The resonance, it feels safe. He thought back to the title Vesh had used prisoner, to the scars on her wrists. She'd spent so long in chains, literal and metaphorical. Now here she was, curled up against him, radiating warmth and light, purring like some kind of exotic space cat. Safe. He tightened his arms around her. Yeah, he whispered back. Safe. They stayed like that for a long time, drifting in the peaceful afterglow of their connection. Eventually, exhaustion claimed them both. Jake fell asleep wrapped around Lyra, her soft light a comforting presence in the darkness. He woke later to the quiet hum of the station filtering through the walls. Lyra was still asleep, nestled against his side, her breathing deep and even. The glow was softer now, a gentle ambient light. He watched her for a moment, his chest tight with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Love. Yeah, probably, mixed with sheer disbelief. He carefully slipped out of bed, pulling on his pants. He needed to think, figure out their next move. They couldn't stay on Haven Point indefinitely. Vesh might still report them, or worse, the Z-TAC could pick up their trail. And Lyra, she deserved more than hiding in cheap station hotels. She deserved a life, maybe even a chance to find other Cathar survivors, to rebuild some semblance of what she'd lost. Could he be part of that? He looked back at her sleeping form, so peaceful, so trusting. The contrast between her current vulnerability and the power she'd wielded on the Nomad was stark. She was safety and danger wrapped in one luminous package. His luminous package. Don't get possessive, Riley. Shared existence, remember. He padded over to the room's small viewport, looking out at the endless river of stars. The future was uncertain, dangerous even. The Z-TAC were still out there. Vesh, or whoever he worked for, likely wouldn't give up easily. But for the first time since his discharge, Jake didn't feel adrift. He felt anchored, tethered, resonant. He heard a soft stirring behind him and turned. Lyra was awake, propped up on one elbow, watching him. The soft glow illuminated her features, her dark eyes full of sleepy affection. "You are troubled," she observed, her voice still husky from sleep. He smiled wryly. "Just contemplating the logistics of interspecies soul bonding when half the galaxy might be hunting us." She sat up, the thermal blanket pooling around her waist. "We will face it, together. Our combined resonance, it is stronger than they anticipate." Her filaments gave a confident little quiver. "Yeah," he said, walking back towards the bed. "Yeah, I think you're right." He sat on the edge, taking her hand, feeling the familiar warmth, the steady thrum of the Shikhar bond connecting them. "So, what now, partner?" Lyra's smile widened. "Now," she said, pulling him gently back down beside her, her eyes sparkling with light and mischief, "we explore the parameters of this shared existence further." He chuckled, letting her pull him into her embrace, breathing in her unique, faintly ozone-like scent. "Okay, so the glowy skin, the purring head filament things, the whole energy soulmate deal, still weird." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, feeling the answering pulse of warmth against his lips, "but definitely good weird." The Z-TAC could wait. For now, she was safe. They were safe. Together. And that felt like the only thing that mattered.